So my idea, in Flint, there was a guy who was a retired auto worker, and he was building what he called Flint Stonehenge in his backyard. Have you heard of this guy?
Yeah.
His name's Wally Wallington. He looks like just a fat old white guy, like John Goodman or something. So he's not a fit guy, and he uses basically wooden tracks and stones. He doesn't use ropes and pulleys to push around these like 10-ton concrete blocks.
All by himself?
All by himself. And he claims that his techniques could have been used to build Stonehenge and possibly the pyramids. And he thinks that it would take like a tenth of the amount of people has been previously proposed in like science documentaries and science papers and stuff. One of the things he builds is he builds these wooden tracks that are like sawtooth shaped, and you can take a square block and roll it on these tracks.
Huh.
Is that like lubed up or something? Or?
No, I don't think so.
How's he get some stone to the track?
He
Has
was
a helicopter drop it in. I'll move it the next 5 feet on this track.
He was setting the concrete himself.
Mixing it up?
He's mixing it himself.
That doesn't seem economical.
That sounds like energy wasted. That's
it
a different
does.
podcast.
It does.
So the ones that he was demonstrating with, he said that were 1.5 tons, and they were about 3 foot square, kind of a little rectangular, but about 3 foot by 3 foot. The ones for Stonehenge were about 15 foot long by 3 foot by 3 foot. And he said they weighed 10.5 tons. And so he invented a wooden contraption to lift them up and tip them over too, which was kind of like a seesaw. So he'd walk on top of it, tip it a little bit to the side. He had like buckets full of cement. And once it tipped to one side, he'd slide a board under it. And then he'd walk on top of it to the other side, tip it the other way, slide a board under the other side. And so it would...
How long would this take? Is this taking him like days, weeks to do one stone? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got time.
But it's one task, right?
Yeah, why waste your precious time on Earth?
You know, my grandfather drank, you know. Choose your poison.
He has a website called The Forgotten Technology. I have some video that I got from YouTube. You can just YouTube The Forgotten Technology. This is a 60-second video. This is him lifting a block up. This is the height of the Stonehenge block. That's him rolling the rectangular block.
Oh, now I kind of get what you mean. Oh, I see.
So it's always got to be the same shaped block then?
Yeah, it's a special shape to allow.
Yeah. Picture's worth 1,000 words.
And another thing he does is he'll put like a little, he's got like a little stone underneath the block.
Okay, now he's rotating, what, just
he's
like a
able to
pebble or
rotate.
something like that?
Yeah. See there, he's moving.
That's amazing. That's tons of concrete. That's amazing.
10.5 tons, I think he said it was.
Man.
And he also moved an entire pole barn 300 feet across his yard, just his manpower, just by rotating it on like a ball bearing type thing in the middle.
You should sell that to the Amish. Amish should be all over that.
That's probably where he got it.
So my idea is to use his techniques to build a giant pyramid in Detroit. And I call it the Detroit Pyramid.
Why a pyramid?
Well, because...
Why Detroit?
Well, nobody will go to Flint.
Point taken.
Detroit's coming back.
So the idea is that it would help revitalize Detroit.
That would be cool.
Part of it was I thought, well, maybe some of the old buildings that they're tearing down, maybe they could reuse some of those materials.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea because, I mean, now they're just going into landfills, which the best thing they can do with those is create ski resorts out of them.
Yeah, I don't know if they can pound down concrete and if they can sort of build it back together somehow.
I think you can, well, if you pound it down, it just becomes, yeah, you can pound it down. They have the strength, they have machinery that can pound that stuff down. You should see, well, they just did 275. They pounded all that stuff down and just basically took shovels and carted it off. You know, big steam shovels, but shovels nonetheless.
It wasn't one guy.
Yeah, it wasn't this guy.
Could have hired it a lot cheaper.
Could have been this
for longer.
Could have been this guy. He would have done it, but it would have taken 9 years. Yeah.
That would have pissed people off.
The Detroit Pyramid, I'd want it to be close enough to downtown that you can see it in the skyline.
Do you have a spot for it specifically?
No.
You know what I'm thinking? They're going to be clearing out a lot of space for the new bridge, the new Gordie Howe Bridge. Right. And I bet there'd be if you were able to get that land.
So I thought, well, it would be a tourist attraction when it's done, but the bigger tourist attraction would be
While it's being built.
While it's being built. The fun part is watching them move those blocks.
Yeah.
So you get a small team of workers.
You think you'd apprentice with that guy? Is that something you'd
No,
like to learn how to
Hey,
do?
take that even further and have a game show, like a reality show made out of it, where like teams
yeah,
are going
make some
against each
money.
other. What's it going to get?
Make it,
Exactly.
Reality
Exactly.
TV, man.
Go get that Michigan Film and Television incentive money.
So yeah, you could have like a little station for kids where they have like foam blocks that they can roll with and
Yeah.
I love that.
It'd be like a museum educational thing. The money made by the tourism part could fund the farther development of it. So it might be self-sustaining or close, especially if you're reusing materials and getting grants and things.
If we built a pyramid out of waste, I mean, stuff that was going to be just put back into landfills anyway, well, that would be huge. People would come to see it. There'd be so many eco geeks, you know, that were, oh, look at what you can do. You can do something that they'll come to make it a tourist attraction just so that they can do it in their town, you know. Look at what they did in Detroit. If they can do it in Detroit, we can do it here.
Another thing I thought about
Franchise.
is
Franchise it.
and another thing I thought about was just people who want exercise. Because if you think about it,
Special gym memberships.
well, they wouldn't pay, but they would maybe do it volunteer for free.
I got you.
And there's a myth called the myth of Sisyphus.
Uh-huh.
And it's a man punished in the afterlife being forced to push a block up a hill.
Only to have it roll
Only to
back
have it
down.
roll back
And then he
down.
has to start over. Yep.
And if you look at what exercise is in a gym, you're basically using a machine to push a block up and down. But you don't even get the self-satisfaction of the delusion of getting something done as it's going up the hill. So it's even worse than
Right,
Sisyphus.
might as well have all the energy to go to something and
Yeah, and part of the reason
show
why
your kids, hey, I built that pyramid.
you can't. The reason why you go to gyms is because it's at a set location,
Uh-huh.
and you can make it part of a routine, as opposed to like trying to do things to help people to get exercise, like Habitat for Humanity. There's no reliable way to build it into your routine because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But if it's this place and it happens to be near where you live, and you could make it part of your routine, people might be willing to volunteer. And then you could have, like, tourists could maybe help a little bit. They could get their name on a plaque or something if they helped. So that might be a way
what you really do is you go to the Make-A-Wish people and find out some kid that wants to like build a mini pyramid or something, make it part of that. You know, then you can attach your name to fundraisers and.
That's right.
And then after you get the pyramid built, you can have that as like the backdrop for a concert, you know, where anytime you're raising money for somebody somewhere, like there's a flood or an earthquake or something like that, you just have that pyramid in the background or something.
Yeah, that's one thing I thought about Comerica Park. Could you put it somewhere where you can see it past the...
Oh, I
upper
think you've
deck?
got to make it big enough so that you can see it anywhere in the city. I mean,
But
there's enough
you-
land and enough crap enough garbage that can be used.
So I looked at where Comerica Park is, and the upper deck is pointing straight downtown and
Yep.
then towards the river. So
Yep.
I tried to Google like abandoned buildings and see if there's any abandoned skyscraper blocks there.
Now you want
view.
It's
I don't-
already bought up all the cheap land on the other side of the freeway.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, you don't need an attraction there. I mean, there's 3 sports teams that play downtown, Major League Sports
Right.
team. There's an
It's
art
really
institute.
concentrated.
There's an art
Downtown
institute.
Detroit's
Everything.
already
There's
like
an art institute.
Mile Square,
There's
that's,
3 or 4 major worldwide corporations with their headquarters down there. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm thinking you could almost see if you could find out where the auto companies are looking, because Dodgetown and the border of Hamtramck in Detroit and the East Jefferson plant, those are all neighborhoods, and those are all places that had deteriorated so bad that they were able to buy those and get public domain authority over the ones that people wouldn't move. And you just take an area like that and just get a large one. You know, I'm thinking Brightmoor is an area like that now, where you just drive through there and you're going, you know, these people that still live here, why? You know, why don't they just get out and get something?
They're real
worth
stubborn.
living?
Like they'll try to get them in one area and they said no.
And this would be perfect for that. If you got this whole area, then what you're doing is, if nobody buys it, then you start your pyramid there. But start with the base, make it nice and wide, So you got places to go. I mean, you want to make it so that people can go inside of it, like have an exhibit where people line up to go through it and climb to the top, so that when they see the top, it's like going to the top of Washington Monument, and you can see, you can see 6 states from up here or something, that type of thing. But I mean, I think there's land that you can do that and make a pretty significant pyramid in Detroit.
Kill that guy though.
What guy's that?
The old guy. I don't know.
Oh, he's not going to do it by himself. We're not going to have him do it.
I don't think he's going to give up Stonehenge.
I know you're doing. Let him do Stonehenge in Flint. I'm talking about Tom Walma's idea.
He's got to learn from this. How many guys are doing this?
I'm not sure this guy is still alive. His website is pretty old. I bought his video 10 years ago.
Is he trying to teach how to
You
do
bought
that?
his video? How to build a pyramid?
I thought, well, this guy's cool. I'll support him a little bit. I bought his $15 DVD.
I love you, Tom. That is so great.
So one last thing on my idea. So I Googled Detroit Pyramid to see if anything came up.
Anybody else has already done it.
Some
And when
beats
did you know somebody already got the website? Somebody's already got DetroitPyramid.com, right?
And it came up with an article. I can't believe it came up with something this old. There was an engineer in 1906
I love this.
who proposed building a giant pyramid in Detroit. And his plan was to use limestone. And I Googled Michigan limestone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
at the time, the biggest limestone mine in the world
Was in Michigan. Yep, I remember
I
that.
did not know that.
It's in northern
about the
Michigan.
salt?
It's
I remember
not
that.
near
I remember
Detroit.
that from school. That's the type of stuff they used to teach us in school.
And it's still active. It's still one of the top 15 limestone mines in the world. So they could maybe use the limestone, or maybe use old materials from buildings they're tearing down or whatever. But either way, there's a history there that you could incorporate in the story of
Yeah.
the Detroit Pyramid.
The more you talk about it, the better I like it.
Get some investors together, make it happen. That might be a tough pitch.
That would be a tough pitch. It would be something that, I mean, when you think about it, you're going to see this happen a lot. There's going to be areas that are going to be left behind. Detroit's just a large city. I mean, there's a lot of room. And if you look at Detroit, they didn't become 2 million people in 1953 or whatever the year was that they achieved 2 million by growing up, like Manhattan or Chicago.
Right,
stuff
they
like
spread
that.
out,
It
right.
spread out. So that's 2 million people in single-family homes and duplexes and fourplex boarding houses or something like that. But there's a lot of land available in Detroit.
tearing it down
They're
as
tearing
fast as they can,
60,000 a
as
year.
fast as they can.
60,000. Well, they're horrible.
Relentlessly.
I used to drive my mom by. She grew up behind Olympia on Marquette and Lawton. When I say behind Olympia, they were shadowed at about 3 p.m. They didn't have any sunlight after 3 p.m. because it went over Olympia and it cast
That's
a
where she
shadow
grew
on
up.
it. Yeah, that's where my mom grew up, and she passed away about 3 or 4 years ago. But every time I went down to Detroit, if she was with me, we'd always go by the house because she always wanted to see it. And every year it was like more and more houses. It was a full block with 24 houses on each side. I mean, you'd reach across, you'd shake the hands of the person next door to you through the bedroom windows and stuff. That's how compact it was. But one by one, you'd just see these houses going away, and they'd be burned out. And sometimes it would take them a couple years. They'd stay burned out for a couple years, and then finally they'd get ripped down. And I went by there again recently, probably 4 months ago or something like that. The house is still
That's
up.
scary. Was that a scary trip?
I'm not afraid of anything in Detroit. The weirdest thing we had when Mayor Duggan first took office, and he had all the street lights out because he was going to replace them. I went to the east side, and all the lights were out. No businesses were in business. There was no houses that kept lights on. Poor people. I mean, these were abandoned houses, and there were no street lights. That was eerie. That was very eerie. But other than that, I mean, but that could be an attraction. The problem would be trying to sell it.
Yeah, invest. They'd rather put the money into a casino where there's just going to be a
Well, not just that, but it's like what you're doing is you'd have to go into a neighborhood and saying, look, your neighborhood is so bad that we can't even tear everything down and put an auto factory up. We can't even do that. Like we did for
they're
East
doing that with
Jefferson.
farms.
Like we did. Oh,
Farms,
you should see the
yeah.
farm. Have you been down there recently?
No.
Oh, I drove down.
It's like an actual farm.
Yes, they have mostly tree farms on the east side. I drove down Charlevoix, and where there had maybe been 18 to 24 houses. These lots were now Christmas tree farms, maple tree farms. They're basically those trees that you see at Home Depot. They're growing them in Detroit now, and it does. And it
It's
does.
really harder to steal a tree. Maybe that's why it's safer to grow that.
It is hard to steal a tree. First, you got to steal the
They
big.
grow in
You
Florida,
got to steal the big claw machine to take the tree. Now you got to go to a
That's
home
too
and
much
garden.
work.
Yeah,
Might
you
as
got
well
to
get a job.
exactly.
Do all that to steal
Exactly. You got to go to a home and garden show. Wait until nobody's looking. Hop into the tree picker. Hot wire the thing. And the tires on the thing are taller than any man. You know. Have you ever seen these things?
I don't know. I can imagine they're huge.
Oh, they have these claws that go in, and they get the tree here, and they just kind of, they almost look like ice cream scoops, but they kind of close in, I think, and then they just lift it straight out. You know, any roots that rip are ones that weren't big enough to hold it. Yeah, and then they stick them in these wraps and hose them down, of course, so that when they wrap it, that moisture will stay in there, and then they transfer them to wherever they need the tree. But that's how hard it is to steal a tree. So
That'd be a funny police chase.
that would be funny. The leaves hitting like it'd be raining and the leaves start hitting the windshield of the police car and they're trying to wipe it off. And everything. That'd be
Three guys run out, but one just tries to hide behind the tree.
And then the police start shaking it to see if there's anybody in there. Leaves are falling down.
I'd imagine they can't grow food there, though, or there used to be houses, because
Yeah, I
they probably
would
don't
say.
clear out all the foundation and stuff from under.
Usually what they do in those cases, I'm familiar with a group that does it in central Detroit near Central High School. What they do is they come in, they plow with a large industrial, not a farm one, but a large, like you would for building a road or something like that.
break up the
Yeah,
ground.
break everything up. And then they kind of rake it out. And then anything that comes out that looks like construction of any kind or something
Rusty
that's,
metal.
yeah, something that a human created. It wasn't anything that God put in there or nature. And then what they do is they kind of level it off and then just leave about 3 feet and put 3 feet of topsoil on it.
Oh, okay.
So anything, and usually by the time something gets down past 3 feet, you've harvested that stuff
Except
anyway.
the tree, maybe.
Well, the tree they don't care about. Nobody's going to eat a tree, so you're not worried about what you're eating. You know.
3 feet of topsoil.
Oh, that's for safety.
a lot
You're
of
saying.
top-
Yes.
Not just so it grows, but
Oh,
so
not
it's
just yeah.
safe.
So that you don't,
Oh, okay.
because the roots now, if it gets below 3 feet, will start going into that brown
Toxic whatever.
toxic
That's
whatever,
what
and they test it. I mean, they test it. There's a big movement down there. Restaurants are using that food now. If you go to Eastern Market on Saturday morning, you ask them, what of this has been grown in the city? They don't advertise it that much, but people know where it's at, and they'll go down to Shed 4, Booth 30, or something like that. They all know.
Well, that's my idea.
I'm comedian Doug Glidden.
And I'm comedian Mark Sweetman.
I'm your host, Tom Walma. This is Creativity Wasted. I have a website, creativitywasted.com, and I also started a Patreon. So if you love the show, consider donating to Patreon.